Hello, my friends. Mandy here with a quick invitation for you to join the Patreon for our show. We've recently switched up some of the benefits, including a new monthly workbook to go along with all the incredible content you're getting on the show. It's a coach yourself through grief kind of a vibe, and for only $10 a month, it is a wholly worthy and affordable way to invest in your own healing process without the commitment of a full coaching relationship. Learn more at patreon.com/Mandy Capehart, and of course, the link is in the show notes. Thank you as always for being here. Now let's get into the good stuff. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 110, titled A Key Skill for Healing Our States and Stories. This week, we're going to go a little deeper on a skill set than we usually do here because I want to share this key skill that you can cultivate to disarm your own negativity bias, bring healing to your nervous system, and realign your sense of self with the values you hold today. Just the little things, right? This is a great episode to revisit, so remember that you can listen again anytime and read transcripts of the essays on my website, as well as get extra support through Patreon. Now let's get into it. If you're among the majority of people who struggle with negativity bias, I see you. The layer of grief over our lives can teach our brains to look for more danger and assume there is loss waiting on every corner. A negativity bias is not just a pessimistic attitude. It is a tendency to notice the negative things happening around us, but also to dwell in our thoughts on those things. It also means we tend to internalize a negative experience more intentionally than a positive one. When we approach life with a bias toward noticing and attending to the negative events and stimuli, we become hypervigilant. Even if we are experiencing safety in the moment, our nervous system is engaged and ready for protection, always on alert, always trying to prevent more loss or pain. And we can call this now loss aversion, which may sound silly. Of course, we're averse to losing more, and that shouldn't be a negative thing. But if we are unaware of our loss aversion behaviors and thoughts, we can create more trouble for ourselves long term. Remaining in a state of loss aversion or hypervigilance means our nervous system is not cycling through to the rest and digest portion for our very complicated lives. Without resting, our nerves remain fraught long term. And long term, this state of loss aversion means we begin embodying our trauma to the degree that we don't know why our stomach always hurts at grandma's house or why we feel lightheaded at the thought of seeing our old high school again. No matter our life experiences, we are all carrying some type of embodied traumatic story. We're all grieving something, whether we recognize it or not. But when we approach our grief with the intention of investigating the story of our losses and fail to take the state of our nervous system into account, we can only really do half of the work. If our nervous system is activated and on alert during the retelling of our story, how do you think you will feel before, during, and after your grief work session? For my clients, when they're activated and showing signs of distress, we stop the work. The storytelling takes a pause and we step away from memories. What we want instead is to work with our nervous system to create awareness of our inherent safety. We can approach places in our stories that feel settled when we are more grounded in our bodies and minds. So, although I would love to walk you through a litany of somatic and nervous system soothing exercises today, we're actually going to use all of this context about trauma and negativity bias and loss aversion and put it all together to use a strategy from cognitive behavioral therapy called Catch, Check, and Change. Now, you may be wondering why we're using a cognitive or mind-based approach to address a dysregulated, hypervigilant nervous system. Go back with me for a moment to the negativity bias we discussed in the beginning. The mind is a part of the body. If you're new here to restorative grief, you may not know that we treat our grief and our personhood holistically, mind, heart, body, and spirit. While all of these parts may seem more treatable individually, the holistic self needs us to practice integrative and collaborative approaches to bring us back toward alignment with our values, ourselves, and what really matters to us long term. Catch, Check, and Change is a thought exercise that helps us notice how our negativity bias and thoughts could be contributing to or intensifying our state of hypervigilance. Using CBT, we can move away from the instinct for loss aversion and instead address our situation head on. We start by catching the thought we want to address. I'll create a scenario, but you can bring one of your own to mind as well. Let's say my experience in high school felt socially traumatic, whether it was awkwardness or isolation, bullying or being ignored. Maybe something in me feels uncomfortable, nervous, anxious, or scared at the thought of returning to the high school building for any reason. Notice that I said something in me feels uncomfortable, not that I feel uncomfortable. When we're doing this or any grief work that evokes emotion, we can deepen the sensation of progress by treating our feelings as something in me and separate from us rather than over identifying with them. That invites curiosity and compassion and releases a whole lot of guilt over feeling some kind of way. So, when I have the presence of mind to notice that something in me feels uncomfortable, nervous, anxious, or scared at the thought of returning, that's catching the thought. I've become aware of the story that I'm telling in my head that thoughts of high school are not good. This is when I check in with the state of my nervous system. Most people will be in a state of hypervigilance here, automatically guarding against the familiar somatic experiences from a negative thought process. Our bodies notice that the thought feels unsafe. They even notice that we are experiencing unsafety before it gets into our thoughts and acts accordingly to prevent further loss. And we want to stay with ourselves here for a moment. Because check is not a process of just noticing and then changing our minds about what we've experienced or how we think about it. Check is an invitation to decide if the thoughts we have and the state of our nervous system are necessary or what we want. Are these thoughts and state in line with our values? Do we want to feel something anxious, nervous, or uncomfortable in us when we consider our high school days or whatever series of thoughts or experiences you've brought to mind? This is where we have a chance to treat our younger selves with a lot of kindness too. Because what you know today in your life is not what your younger self knew. And the strategies you used for survival served you as well as they could. And inviting change into your nervous state now is also a way of inviting your younger self into the safe body you now inhabit. High school cannot impact you now the way it did when you were younger because you're not in high school anymore. You're not exposed to the same behaviors, and you are not the same person. That means when we make the decision to change the way we think about our past experience, current sensations or feelings, and our younger selves in the middle of it all, we are recognizing that we have the power to choose mercy for ourselves in the moment. Personally, I was going through my own experience with a younger self recently, and the age I explored left something in me feeling so much frustration about the choices I'd made. I've tried the change your mindset way of thinking about that time in my life, and it never lasted. I still carried something in me that I couldn't name because simply changing your mindset doesn't happen overnight. It's not a choice we can actually make because we are ignoring the state of our nervous system by doing that. So when I opted to see my younger self with kindness and notice how my body responded to the thoughts of returning to that place in my mind, I was returning in my mind to that place full of resources, full of wisdom, years of experience, and physical safety, knowing that I do not inhabit that unsafe place any longer. You are bringing the fullness of all your insight and wisdom to your younger self. When you check yourself and then decide if you want to change, you're not just changing your mind to a better thought. You're not simply becoming an optimist and going about life laughing all the time. You are rescuing your younger self with mercy. What I learned about that something in me wasn't expected. I found the block in my healing about that situation and loss was all the regret I had embodied from my trauma, as if it was my fault. Years of doing something counter to my values today left me critical and activated when I considered what I tolerated back then. But today, my values are different, now guided by knowledge and experiences that younger me did not have access to. The change part of catch, check, and change can be even more simple if you're not dealing with something traumatic like I'm describing here. For example, if you want to think more highly of your neighbor, you have the power to catch your thoughts, Check if that thought is aligned with what you believe in and change the thought each time it comes up. The process may feel tedious or repetitive, but overall, it is an effective tool. But for those of us who are grieving, the change part is a deliberate act of mercy, compassion, and rescue toward our younger self who felt the danger firsthand and needs the now safe present day version of us to alleviate the stress. Noticing what in me carried regret made me cry, you guys, hard. Naming the regret gave me power to recognize how those circumstances had continued to follow me for decades, impacting the state of my nervous system over and over again. And discovering what regret had to teach me about my current state and what lies in the future for me empowered me to release the obligation of an overprotective nervous system worried about repeating the same habits and regrets from the past. And now I can honestly say a thought of that past self and the players involved doesn't make my heart race. I don't feel nauseated or afraid of what could happen or be said about me. Instead, I remember the woman I was then and I bring her close, allowing the softness and wisdom of the today self to be what tells her and my nervous system that we are safe. Thank you for listening to episode 110 of Restorative Grief. All of the $10 words in this episode boil down to this. You are a bundle of all of your life experiences, but you are not obligated to live today from the influence of those earlier experiences. You get to choose which ones impact you the most. Grief work is all about creating meaning for the present self in a way that leads to hopeful, happier futures. So that means sometimes we have to dig a little deeper to see what might be keeping us in that state of self-protection and no longer necessary fight or flight responses. We covered a lot of ground today, so if you've ever considered becoming a patron of the show, now is a great time to do it. Remember that workbook I mentioned at the top of the episode? Well, you can snag one for November and this episode as a one-time thing, or become a patron ongoing and gain immediate access to all past workbooks as well. Using a podcast as a tool in your self-coaching toolbox only works if you apply the concepts to your life, and my workbook will help you do that. If this is your first time listening to the show, thank you for being here and sticking with a little bit of a denser episode. Please subscribe so you can catch every one of my weekly episodes and leave a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. Come find me on Instagram or other social media platforms under @MandyKPart. And if you're interested, you can even reach out at mandykpart.com to see if one-on-one grief coaching is a good fit for you. I also have a new holiday grief course called Guilt-Free Grieving that's launching in December. You can learn more about that at mandykpart.com/courses as well. Links are available for all of those in the show notes with the details. And before we go, as always, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.